much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will now call our meeting to order and welcome to the monthly hearing of the Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals. Before we address this month's cases, I'd just like to ask everybody who's able to stand as Mr. Carl Carver leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Carl. Carl is a huge help to this board on questions regarding stormwater management. He's probably on everybody's frequently called contact list. But anyway, for those of you who don't have a copy of the agenda or are here for listening in for the first time, the first thing we'll concern ourselves with are cases that are on consent. These are cases that have been reviewed by the board and by the professionals from various departments on the county staff, and to which there is no known opposition at this time. We've discussed these in our work sessions. Certain staff comments and stipulations have been made, and we don't anticipate any further discussion is needed for a decision. So as we go forward, the County Zoning Division Manager, Mr. John Peterson, will read each case into the record. Under normal circumstances, every applicant would be here in person, and we would ask that they raise their hand as their case is called. Since we're now following COVID protocols again, the applicants with cases on consent have been asked to listen into the proceedings from their cars just outside the building. They don't need to do anything unless there is opposition here. With that said, if you are here in opposition to a case that's currently on consent, we'll ask that you identify yourself as that case is read into the record. We'll then pull that case off consent and hear it as part of our regular case agenda. We will then vote on all the cases still on consent at one time. Once we've approved the cases on consent, we'll take a short break so that Mr. Peterson and his staff can follow up with the applicants as necessary. We'll then proceed to our regular case agenda. So with that, I think we are ready to address the consent cases. Mr. Peterson, do you have any other comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is one announcement here. The applicant for case number V115, Melanie K. Mullins, did submit a letter last week requesting her case to be withdrawn. So I would ask the board at this time to please consider withdrawing V115 without prejudice.
All right. Do we need to go ahead and take a vote on that one?
So, Mr. Chairman, thank you. My motion is that we go ahead and honor the applicant's request and allow the withdrawal of that requested variance without prejudice.
All right. So we have a motion from Mr. Beloin, a second from Ms. Russell. Any further discussion? All right. I'll call for the vote. And the motion is approved 5-0 to withdraw that case.
All right. Thank you. All right, Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals, variance hearing consent agenda for October 13th, 2021. First case on consent is variance case V108. Ramon Gamaz requests a variance to reduce the front setback from required 35 feet to 23 feet and to reduce the side setback for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for an existing approximately 234 square foot shed number 1 and existing approximately 385 square foot shed number 2 from required 10 feet to 3 feet adjacent to the southern property line in land lot 1143 of the 19th district. The property is located on the east side of Lantern Lane, north of Clay Road. Staff recommends approval subject to the following conditions. Number 1, site plan review comments. Number 2, site plan contained in the variance analysis for shown encroachments only. And number 3, development and inspections comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V108?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V109, Shirley Thrash requests a variance to number 1, reduce the rear setback for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for an existing approximately 360 square foot concrete slab with shed roof from required 40 feet to 20 feet. And number 2, reduce the setbacks for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for an existing approximately 570 square foot barn with shed roof from required 40 feet, from the required 40-foot rear setback to 0 feet, and required 12-foot side setback to 1 foot adjacent to the southern property line in land lot 1116 of the 19th District. The property is located on the east side of Hill Road, north of Brownsville Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to development and inspections comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V109?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V110, Wee Wen requests a variance to reduce the side setback from required 10 feet, 3 feet, which is existing, adjacent to the northern property line in land lot 680 of the 17th District. The property is located on the east side of Crow Drive, south of Thistle Drive. Staff recommends approval, subject to development inspections comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V110?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V111, North Atlanta Installation LLC requests a variance to number 1, allow 2 signs, which is sign A and sign A2, to be non-ground-based monument style. And number 2, increase the maximum sign area for sign A from 49 square feet to 248.1 square feet. And number 3, increase the maximum height of signs from 19 feet to 94 feet for sign A and to 20 feet for sign A2 in land lot 133 of the 20th District. The property is located on the east side of Barrett Lakes Boulevard, south of Chastain Road, west of I-75. Staff recommends approval, subject to traffic comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V111?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V112, Christopher B. Adams requests a variance to number 1, allow an accessory structure, which is an approximately 2,750 square foot metal building on a lot without a principal building on tract number 1. Number 2, reduce the side setback for an accessory structure over 1,000 square feet for the approximately 2,750 square foot metal building from required 100 feet to 43.7 feet adjacent to the southern property line on tract 1. Number 3, allow an accessory structure, which is an approximately 2,700 square foot metal building to the side of the principal building on tract 2, which is existing. And number 4, reduce the front setback for an accessory structure over 1,000 square feet for an approximately 2,700 square foot metal building from required 100 feet to 64.8 feet, which is existing in land lots 311 and 336 of the 20th District. The property is located on the east side of Trail Road, north of Midway Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, fire department comments, and number 2, barn to be used for personal storage only. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V112?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V113, Bobby Moore and Sherry Moore request a variance to reduce the setback for a barn associated with a riding stable, which is approximately 7,475 square feet in land lot 221 of the 20th District. The property is located on the east side of Ackworth Due West Road, south of Stylesboro Road. Staff recommends approval. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V113?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V114, Curley Family Homes, request a variance to reduce the side setback from 10 feet to 5 feet, adjacent to the southern property line in land lot 605 of the 19th District. The property is located on the southwest corner of Moon Road and Warm Season Drive. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, development inspections comments, and number 2, fire department comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V114?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V116, Edward Karam requests a variance to allow an accessory use, which is a proposed pool, to be closer to the side street right-of-way line than the principal building, as well as to the side of the house in land lot 54 of the 16th District. The property is located on the southwest corner of Jamerson Road and Locklear Way. Staff recommends approval. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V116?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V117, Sergey Melnichenko requests a variance to number 1, reduce the side setback for a deck from required 5 feet to 2 feet adjacent to the northern property line. Number 2, allow an accessory structure, which is an existing approximately 475-foot square foot shed to be to the side of the principal building. Number 3, reduce the setbacks for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for an existing approximately 475 square foot shed for required side setback of 10 feet to 4 feet adjacent to the northern property line and required rear setback of 35 feet to 4 feet. Number 4, allow an accessory structure, which is an existing approximately 288 square foot carport to be to the front of and close to the side street right-of-way line in the principal building. And number 5, reduce the setbacks for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for an existing approximately 288 square foot shed for required major side setback of 25 feet to 0 feet and required rear setback of 35 feet to 5 feet in land lots 562 and 563 of the 16th District. The property is located on the northeast corner of Morgan Road and Morgan Chase Drive. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, development and inspections comments, and number 2, traffic comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V117?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V118, Susanna Sebastian Castrillon and Ananaksheen David Bello Sebastian request a variance to number 1, increase the maximum allowable impervious surface from 35% to 56.3%, which is existing. And number 2, reduce the setbacks for an accessory structure over 650 square feet for an existing approximately 672 square foot frame garage for required 100 feet to 16 feet from the rear, 16 feet to the western property line, and 58 feet to the eastern property line in land lots 284 and 293 of the 17th District. The property is located on the north side of Caruth Drive, west of West Atlanta Street. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, traffic comments. Number 2, stormwater mitigation is required for impervious coverage over the allowable of 35%. If the variance is approved prior to the issuance of a building permit, an updated site plan will be required. The updated site plan shall indicate the location and design for the stormwater mitigation. The final plan is to be reviewed and approved by the Cobb County Stormwater Division. Number 3, if the variance is approved prior to issuance of the land disturbance permit and/or building permit, the applicant shall obtain a state EPD stream buffer variance and a Cobb County stream buffer variance for the existing garage located within the said stream buffers. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V118?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V119, Tim Weaver requests a variance to number 1, reduce the front setback from required 35 feet to 31 feet, and number 2, reduce the rear setback for an accessory structure under 144 square feet for an existing 100 square foot storage shed from required 5 feet to 2 feet in land lot 1091 of the 19th District. The property is located on the north side of Old Thompson Drive, west of Bo Hendrick Drive. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, traffic comments, and number 2, development and inspections comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case of V119?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V120, Kimberly Horn and Associates Incorporated request a variance to number 1, reduce the front setback from required 50 feet to 0 feet. Number 2, reduce the side setback from required 35 feet to 15 feet adjacent to the northern property line. And number 3, reduce the side setback from required 35 feet to 0 feet along the southern property line in land lot 1009 of the 17th District. The property is located at the southern terminus of Shadowwood Parkway, south of Powers Ferry Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, traffic comments. Number 2, development and inspections comments. And number 3, fire department comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V120?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case of V121, Nelson Wade requests a variance to number 1, reduce the front setback from required 25 feet to 20 feet, which is existing. Number 2, reduce the setbacks for an accessory structure over 650 square feet for an existing approximately 832 square foot basketball court required 100 feet to 0 feet adjacent to the northern property line, 16 feet adjacent to the eastern property line, 46 feet adjacent to the southern property line, and 78 feet adjacent to the western property line. And number 3, increase the maximum allowable impervious coverage from 40% to 47.3%, which is existing, in land lot 691 of the 19th district. The property is located at the at the southeast terminus of Trotters Field Drive, south of Stirrup Lane. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, traffic comments. Number 2, stormwater mitigation is required for impervious coverage over the allowable 40%. If the variance is approved prior to the issuance of a building permit, an updated site plan will be required. The updated site plan shall indicate the location and design for the stormwater mitigation. The final plan is to be reviewed and approved by the Cobb County Stormwater Division. Number 3, if the variance is approved prior to the issuance of a land disturbance permit and/or building permit, the applicant shall obtain a state EPD stream buffer variance and a Cobb County stream buffer variance for the existing basketball court located within the said stream buffers. Is there anyone here opposed to the variance case of V121?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V122, Twiggs Farmers Market LLC, request a variance to number 1, reduce the landscape buffer from required 20 feet to 5 feet adjacent to the eastern property line, and number 2, reduce the landscape buffer from required 20 feet to 0 feet adjacent to the northern property line and land lot 869 of the 19th district. The property is located on the northeast corner of Powder Springs Road and Hopkins Road. Staff recommends approval. Is there anyone here opposed to the variance case of V122?
No.
Okay. Let the record show there's no one opposed. And last case is variance case V123. Gary M. Deppie, Inc. request a variance to reduce the side setback from required 20 feet to 5 feet in land lots 984 and 985 of the 16th district. The property is located on the northwest corner of Sunny Meadows Lane and Winter Haven Lane, north of Roswell Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, development and inspections comments, and number 2, fire department comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V123?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed, and that completes the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman and board.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peterson. Okay, so it's back to the board. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns about any of these cases from anyone?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just had a couple of questions and comments or concerns about V120 that perhaps could be cleared up by staff.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. I'm not trying to vote now. If a vote
Yeah,
comes
I
up,
got you.
that was inadvertent. I apologize. So my questions for staff about V120 my concerns just arise to make sure there's still a good clear line of sight as folks come around this corner inside the project as they come off of what I think is Shadow Lawn Parkway. And I note that there are some rectangles that seem to be going right into the what is currently a paved roadway, and I was hoping someone on staff could clear up for me what those rectangles are, so we can make certain those aren't in any way visual impairments.
So we probably need to hear from, I guess, Ms. Reddick. Could you help with, because I think that's a DOT question, probably?
That could be, or that could be anyone on staff.
Okay.
But my questions really concern, one that it would be a DOT question would specifically be, right now there's a stop sign on the private road, and I didn't see it as an express condition that stop sign remains. I would assume it would, but is that an appropriate condition would be my question for the DOT.
Yeah, and my understanding is that there's been no discussion about changing that, so.
Right, but my concern was it wasn't an express stipulation.
So, Ms. Reddick, do you mind helping us with that one?
Abby Reddick, DOT.
So let me start with that one. Is there, it could be subsumed within the staff comments in that I don't know what all of the Cobb County development standards and ordinances are that are stated there as related to the project improvement, but I did see that you were recommending extending the driveway uninterrupted access. I don't know precisely how that factors in. Maybe you could start with that, maybe, so I understand what that pertains to.
Yeah, so Shadowlawn Parkway is public right-of-way up until just past the gate
The
here.
gate,
So it is a private road. The development standards are really for their parking spaces and the building setbacks as well. When it comes to the stop sign, because it is a private road, there's not a lot of, requirements that we have for that. They may want to reevaluate the location of their parking spaces so close to the stop sign where it is currently. But other than that, we don't really have a lot of, jurisdiction on the private road itself and how it kind of operates up until they get to the county right away.
Okay.
So it would be difficult for us to include a stipulation to that effect?
I mean, you could stipulate, I don't know what you're looking to stipulate essentially.
I'm not necessarily.
It's just me. It's just me. So, yeah. So there's nothing in Cobb County ordinances that requires them to leave the stop sign there that is presently there?
I don't think so. I can,
Okay.
I can look to make sure and get back to you on that, but
Okay. And
not to
then-
my knowledge.
And then at page 118 of the book, I see what appear to be two rectangles going into that private driveway. And I was curious as to what those were.
Is there a site plan we can, I don't know which rectangles you're referencing.
It's at page 118 of our book. I don't know if you have that same book. I can.
Yes,
Okay.
I do.
Where are they located again?
They appear to be going out into the private right-of-way.
Oh, I think that's just some measurements, is what that's showing, the distance from the one end of the parking area to the other of the proposed parking area.
Okay, that would be the parking area right there.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Fine. And then, okay, that's it. You didn't have any concerns, or the DOT had no concerns as to the line of sight issues that may or may not be created here by these variances being granted? Or is it just something where, because that's private property, you consider that to be not within the jurisdiction of the Cobb DOT?
Yeah, it's not something we would normally review as part of the plan review process. If it's not within the county right away, it doesn't necessarily affect our traffic concerns along that street.
Okay. All right. Thank you,
Great.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you for allowing me to ask those
You bet,
questions.
you bet. That was helpful to have some clarification around that. All right, so if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion for approval of our consent cases. Mrs. Russell has made that motion. We have a second? Second. Okay. Mr. O'Malley is seconded. Any further discussion? Call for a vote. All right, and the vote is 5-0 to support approval of all the consent cases. So that will do it for the consent agenda. For those of you whose case is on consent, you're now free to go if you're here or in your car. If you do leave, I'd ask that you leave quietly. We are going to take a 5-minute break, though, to give Mr. Peterson time for some follow-up communication before we move to our regular case agenda. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, welcome back to our meeting of the Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals. We're now ready to proceed to our regular case agenda. Our procedure here is that Mr. Peterson will read the case into the record. The applicant and/or any representative of the applicant who wishes to speak will be asked to come forward to be sworn in. by Ms. Margie Vasquez, right? And then likewise, anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be asked to come forward to be sworn in as well. The applicant in opposition will each have 10 minutes to present their case. All testimony will be made to the podium to my right. Testimony will be followed by questions from the board and may be directed at either party. And with that, Mr. Peterson, I think we're ready for our case.
Yes, sir. Next case is variance case V81. Christel McDowell requests a variance to number 1, reduce the rear setback from required 30 feet to 15 feet. And number 2, allow an accessory structure, which is a proposed 400 square foot garage to be to the side of the principal building and closer to the street, the side street right-of-way line in land lot 620 of the 19th district. The property is located on the southwest corner of Battle Court and Battle Trail. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V81? Let the record show those two people here opposed to variance case V81. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Good afternoon. It's good to see you both again.
Hello again.
If you could please state your name for the record.
Crystal McDowell.
And Drew McDowell.
Great, thank you both. And I guess if you could just maybe explain to us any subsequent conversations to our last hearing and any other things that you think the board needs to know. But you've got the floor for 10 minutes.
Thank you. Excuse me. Could you please post that and enlarge this? Thank you. First off, I want to say thank you so much for verbally approving the first of the 2 variances, which is the setback. That's appreciated very much. And allowing us to postpone for a month due to a family situation. Something that's a little off is during the last few meetings, Mr. Andrews has made a few comments which are a little concerning to us. And one that he implied that we're trashy neighbors, which we certainly are not, and he knows better than that. Secondly is he thought that we should be mindful about how we spend our money, and that is not his concern. With that said, we take very seriously how we spend our money, whether it be a bicycle, a washing machine, or a camper. And in this case, we're talking about a camper and protecting that investment, which is very important to us. Mr. Andrews' property line is lined with mature trees, very tall. We're talking, the great big poplars and such. And the canopy from that overhangs on our property by about 30 feet. So we're getting all the leaf debris, down branches, and all of that. So our primary goal with requesting the carport is to protect our investment, not just to have it out there to be destroyed by the falling limbs. As an act of good faith, we have revised our request, and my husband will address this.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We proposed to downsize the lot that we wanted, the shed that I wanted, the cover that I wanted, the RV cover, to 12 by 20 by 14, which is a single RV cover. And that's basically it.
Other than that, not much has changed.
Okay.
We're downsizing.
What was the original proposed size?
25 foot.
20 by
double
20?
wall.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Sorry about that. Anything else? I mean, we may have some other questions for you before we're done, but you still got time on the clock if you want it.
I'm gonna move the 20 feet as close to the driveway as possible toward the back of the house.
Okay. Can you guys take a second and just talk about maybe what kind of materials you're thinking of using on the structure?
It would be a modular galvanized shed, carport, galvanized. tube supports.
Okay. How about, so what would the roof
The
look
roof will be
like?
galvanized also,
Okay.
and we can get it the color of our house, and it will be on a concrete base.
Okay. Trying to think, again, we'll probably have questions for you later, but if you're done for now, we'll go ahead and call up the opposition, hear from them.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, but we're going to have time for questions later,
Okay, that's good.
okay?
I was just wondering about if there were any pictures of the new building.
We'll come back to that one, is that okay? Because, yeah, okay. Thank you both. All right, so we need to call up the opposition, please. Hello again.
I haven't met you yet.
No, we have not met, but if you wouldn't mind, please stating your name for the record.
I'm Charlie Andrews.
Okay,
Joseph Andrews,
all right.
and we have met.
Yes, we have.
Yes.
And you both have 10 minutes to present your case.
Okay. I've heard all about you since May, so nice to put names to faces. And we are sticking with my husband's original thing that you all have documentation and pictures and photographs, and I understand the AV man is right here beside me. Okay. Mr. Peterson, your suggestion from August the 11th hearing was to have the carport shed located at the back of both properties, which was a good idea and one which we agreed to with an equitable compromise. We thought it was an equitable compromise. I think you guys have seen that before. And then since we learned the applicants wanted to locate the building back to its original position, which we just don't find acceptable. This process has been going on since May, as you all know, and we feel like nothing has been accomplished. Our objections are still the same: loss of privacy, loss of property value, loss of curb appeal and aesthetics, runoff, drainage, flooding, and erosion issues. And the other codes that were mentioned before still have not been addressed, and I'm sorry if it came across as we thought their yard was junky or anything like that. They've been excellent neighbors. But nothing's been changed. Even since we brought this up in May, everything is still out there, still the same. Going forward, this would be a permanent hardship for us and something that could not be reversed. Once it's there, it's not going away. This is not something anyone would want to have next to their property. We're just here to protect and defend our home property investment of 34 years. So we just hope you'll take that into consideration and vote no. So,
Please.
yeah.
Mr. Andrews, anything from you?
Not really. Everything is pretty much status quo, but I understand they request a different size now going in, and I'm not sure that's on the table at all, even though it is a smaller size, which would be better. Putting the lot, the carport on the back would have been, that was our compromise. So far, we haven't had a compromise from them, so, and we were just looking for the best possible means. Mr. Peterson had a really good idea of putting it back there. That way, it's out of the view of our field of vision from our deck and our driveway and our dining room. So, it's
Okay.
up to the board.
Yep, thank you. We'll explore that option with them, and we'll call them back up here in just a moment. The one other thing, I guess, I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of, though, is that if they do choose to, like, just put a concrete pad there, they can do that and still park the vehicle there. So,
Yeah, we
you know,
understand that.
I don't know if that's a, preferable option for you guys or not. I'm thinking probably not. So just
Well,
know
it's
that
either-
that is
It's either
another.
have a big vehicle in our dining room window or a big shed. I mean, either way, it's a big piece of metal that's not pretty. From our
I mean,
dining room window.
I
Yeah.
prefer that the RV would be everything in the back, but
We understand. So, and we'll explore that one in just 1 minute, but I just want to make sure you guys have still got 6.5 minutes if you have anything else.
Yeah, we're good.
I'm sure we'll have
And
more.
the trees have always been there, so if there's been an issue, I mean, we've never been asked to, as our neighbors know, that is a touchy subject with the trees and property and everything, and,
Yeah, we've been there 34 years, and they've been there about 20, maybe a little more.
Okay,
And,
but we've never been
Well-
asked to trim,
okay.
so.
Fair enough. A lot of this is kind of out of scope for what we're doing here too,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
we'll
so.
leave it at that for right now then, and I'm going to open it up for the rest of the board to ask questions, but you guys can go ahead and be
All right.
seated for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, as we know, this is a case that is in District 4, and Ms. McSwain, I'll ask you to kind of facilitate the discussion from here, if you wouldn't mind. And I know we're going to have some questions from other members of the board, so if you want to hear from them first.
Yes, I would.
Yes, one question I heard there, I thought I heard was that not only was the applicant going to reduce the size of the building somewhat, but also, I thought he mentioned that, or they mentioned that they were going to move it back a little bit. Not back to the point where both, where the opposing party wanted it, but I thought it was going to be still, it was going to move back. So I'm just wondering if moving it back and being a smaller structure is some sort of compromise.
Who would you want to direct the question to?
Actually, to both parties.
Okay. Could we hear then from the applicant first, I guess, about what the location? Oh, and one other question I had, I noticed on the other slide, the orientation of the garage was different from what we're seeing here. Maybe you guys can you just confirm that this is the orientation of the garage?
Yes.
That's it?
And it's
This is the right one? Okay.
carport. It's carport, not enclosed.
Carport,
garage.
I meant, well,
Just
okay.
a carport with the shed over the top. And I'll move it as far away from the back of their deck as I can to the edge of the driveway.
Okay. So, Mr. O'Malley, would you mind maybe asking that question one more time? So,
So the location of the proposed 20 by 20 garage, which is not 20 by 20 anymore, correct?
Right. It's 12
Okay.
by 20.
That, how I see it right there, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought that you were going to try to move that back a little bit, knowing that you couldn't move it all the way back to where the people in opposition wanted it, but it was still going to move back some.
Right, I can move it back to the 5-foot property, off of the property line and over, as close as I can get it to the driveway.
Okay.
I'm not sure I understood. You're saying you can do what now?
Not 5 feet.
Like I can put it 5 feet away from the property line, right?
Can you demonstrate, can you show like where you're talking about?
Like here,
Mhm.
and move that to 5 feet back, and that'll give me more room to slide it this way. And the front.
So it'd be closer to the property line.
Yes,
Closer to the proper
Yes,
line, but back a little bit.
yes.
Now, is that out of the line of sight of the opposition's,
No,
No.
their view is the back of our home, period. Their view is our property.
Does that help you with your question? Okay. Thank you both. Anyway, actually, before you all sit down, who else might have questions for the applicant? Did you have one? Okay.
What construction do you have on the sides? Is it open, or are there walls there around it?
It's open.
Okay. And there's no way you can put it in the back corner of your property now that you've reduced the size?
The picture that I have up there now is the back of our house. The deepest part is 16 feet. And then you can see that where the barrels are, that's about 5 feet. And then on the other side, towards the very other corner, that's about 8 feet. We're very limited in the back. That is our backyard. The property line, the tree line right there, that's the property line.
And there's no possibility of extending the drive, of using part of the driveway that exists now?
To
Well,
be able to get out of the driveway,
not,
from the garage.
not for the trailer parking, but that's why I reduced the size of the shed in the beginning, because I can put a smaller storage shed in that space right there.
Are you talking about the carport cover for the RV is what you're calling the storage shed?
Yes, I reduced the size. We wanted to put storage inside of that in the beginning. That's why I had it that wide before.
Okay.
Just maybe quick point of clarification for Mr. Peterson, just looking at the site plan that we've got here, it looks like any structure would probably require a separate variance, right? If it were a shed or something. I know that's not what we're here to discuss, but because when you proposed this other idea, we were saying that would still require a variance.
It would, and you know, the way the house is plotted on this lot is very unusual because it's
Yeah.
kind of in the back corner. Normally it'd be more up towards the corner, which would allow more room for a detached structure.
Right.
So virtually anywhere you put it on here would need some type of variance.
Yeah.
Are you saying the shed that he wants to put in that 16-foot area will need an additional variance?
Anything past that building line, I believe, is going to require a variance.
Well, I was told as long as it was 5 feet away from the property line, I was good.
I can't tell you all the county code, John.
And
Can
the
you help us?
5-foot setbacks for a structure under 144 square feet.
Okay.
And, you know, the smaller one on this would be 240 square feet. So
All right.
it still would
So,
need a
yeah, it
variance.
depends on
About 10.
size.
10
Okay?
by 10, yes.
Just given the concerns we've heard from the opposition, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about I'll call it the aesthetics of the carport. Would it be possible, and maybe we make the stipulation that if we do approve it, that the back part of it is solid, and that you do some kind of vegetation? I know it may be tough with trees and shade and all that, but some kind of a natural, barrier between the property line and the carport, but then the vehicle is obscured. It's a solid, wall on that back end of the carport. And try it as best you can to incorporate features of, the architecture of the home itself into the carport, I think might go a long way. But that's really for Ms. McSwain to consider as she thinks about what makes sense here. But any other questions from the board for the applicant? Okay. You get Mike.
I'm going to recommend approval for this based on the compromising that Mr. McDowell has done, and also stipulations of vegetation maybe hiding the view of the shed.
I have a question about the vegetation. It's going to be difficult to get anything to grow there, but they've got those really pretty decorative vegetative screens. Would that be appropriate?
I'm going to suggest that maybe we leave this with the county arborist to help find a solution,
Okay.
if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
okay.
And then if I could, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I still think, given the concerns that the applicants raised and the nods, I'm sorry, from the opposition, but the nods I got from you guys, that maybe a solid wall on that back part of the
Right, yeah. A
carport
solid
would
wall.
be appropriate, an appropriate stipulation.
Okay. So I'm going to recommend approval with stipulations from the arborist to give you more guidance, and maybe a solid wall there to obscure the view.
Mr. Chairman.
Very good.
All right. Y'all can be seated.
Thank you.
So at this point, we do have a motion to approve from Ms. McSwain.
Mr. Chairman.
I'll second for purposes of discussion.
Okay, so we got a second for Mr. Boulogne, and then discussion.
Yes, my discussion would just be a clarification. Given the fact the applicant indicated the willingness to move this closer towards the house, is that going to be part of the approval, or is that part of the motion as well, that this be amended to be a 12-foot by 20-foot structure to be located 5 feet closer to the house than shown on the existing plan, or 10 feet closer to the house, or something along those lines?
Yes.
Just
that's-
inquiring.
And I don't mean to, again, interrupt here, but my thinking was that if they moved it closer to the house, they were talking about having to move in behind that setback line, right? And so maybe some clarification on that one.
Yeah, I think we would need some clarification to have a second, or another variance included within that. I don't know how far it can be moved. It looks like at least 5, if not 10 feet, particularly if they're allowed to have a 5-foot setback, a setback reduction to 5 feet. But I'll leave that to the District 4 member.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, if we're talking about it's a different variance there, I don't think that's probably where we're wanting to go today. But,
No.
Is that going to make that much difference?
so we have a
think so.
motion, we
Have
have
a
a
motion,
second.
yes.
Any further discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson?
If I could ask the BZA member to articulate that in the form of a motion, not a recommendation.
Okay.
So I move to approve.
Sorry about that.
That would be the preference
Okay.
Okay.
to state.
All right. I move to approve the variance based on the stipulations that we have discussed and the compromise that Mr. McDowell has done.
All right. Do we need another second, Mr. Johnson, or are we good to go?
For the purpose of the motion, I think there needs to be some more specificity as to approval to the application of the variance in question, and to articulate out, and we can certainly help craft that so that our minutes reflect accurately what is being moved to approve and the second that would go with it and what the vote would be. So we need a little more information.
So Commissioner McSwain would need to rephrase the motion with the stipulations? Is that what you're saying?
The stipulations need to be expressly stated as specific as possible for the purpose of this application, because there was some negotiated compromise between the
Okay.
applicant and the opposition. And I know this helps the clerk in drafting the minutes, which becomes the record.
Okay. So Ms.
Okay.
McSwain, if you wouldn't mind just kind of rephrasing the motion again and capturing all the steps.
Okay, let's see. I move to approve this case based on the stipulations of the arborist being consulted for, the vegetation, as well as the back wall being built to obscure the view of the structure.
That would
Is
be
that good?
a solid wall on the back of the carport, right? Not to put words in your mouth.
Is that good?
Okay, Mr. Peterson.
And just to add one more layer of clarification.
Yes.
So we can enforce this. Just regarding the landscape part, can we amend the motion to read county landscape architect to approve a screening buffer behind the building so we know where it is and what it does?
I couldn't hear, I'm sorry.
Could we state the county landscape architect to approve a landscape screening buffer behind the shed, or behind the carport. So that way we know where it is and what it's going to be.
The county landscape architect to approve.
Landscape
Okay.
buffer, yep, behind the carport.
A question, do we need to also now include the size of this structure since it is not
That's a good
listed in
question.
that fashion?
Yeah. I don't think we're running any risk by saying that we're approving the 12 by 20 by
that's what I'm saying,
14.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up. Does that sound reasonable, John? Okay, great. Now I'll
Okay.
direct my questions to the clerks. Are we okay with, that's a motion, yes. Okay, so we just need some clarification on exactly where it's going to be located then, Ms. McSwain.
Okay. And that's the back wall, what's that, the west? The west side?
Yes.
Okay, so, I recommend approval for this case, for the building of the 12 by 20 shed on the west side of the home. And for the landscape, the county landscape architect to approve the buffer. And also the wall.
Behind the carport and the wall, but then the location. I think it's where it's been proposed. It'll be to the southern part of what's been proposed, on this drawing, since it's a smaller footprint.
So it's the southern wall?
Yeah.
It looks like it's west.
Well, the west is the building line, so it would be the part that's closer to the house. So I think it would go on that proposed southern building line.
Southern
Or,
line.
So basically where it is, except it would be on the left side of that proposed building site. Does that make sense?
You said the southern
Yeah.
building line.
Well, the building line of the proposed garage.
Okay, I recommend approval for this.
I don't think you need to
variance.
rephrase it all, but just that, we're talking about the building site itself, so it's to the, yeah, I'll let you say it.
So it's the southern side of the wall, southern side of the
Of the
home.
proposed building site, yes.
Okay, I recommend the proposed building site to be on the southern side of the wall, southern side of the home.
No,
It's,
It's the southern side of the proposed building site for the carport. Since it's a
southern
smaller
side of the
footprint.
proposed building site of the. So, I'm going to recommend approval for the building of the shed on the southern side of the proposed building site.
John, does that sound adequate to you,
I thought it was western.
since we're dealing with a different footprint?
So we're sliding it to the south, correct?
Well, it's where the proposed carport would be, but it'll be, since it's not as big, it'll be still, yeah, shifted to the south, or it'll be, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just by reducing the building, it's sliding to the south, because the 8 feet they're going to chop off is to the front towards Battle Court.
Yeah.
So just by making it smaller, it's moving it back away from the
Yeah.
road.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you guys happy with the wording at this point? Sorry, it's taken so much to get to here, but I think we're good.
Fine,
Mr.
second.
Boulogne, did you have another?
No?
You got second, okay. So We got a motion, a second. I think we've had all the discussion we need at this point. We're ready to call the vote? All right, I will call the vote. And the motion to approve passes by 5-0. And that concludes our, no, it doesn't. Oh, that's right, we got a couple other adders. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Peterson for next item, business item.
So that would complete the part of this hearing for cases.
Oh, I'm sorry, John, yeah, you guys can be seated. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So that completes the part of the hearing where we're hearing variance cases. There are two items we're just going to kind of informally discuss today on your other business agenda. The first one is we want to discuss the revised hearing procedures, and I believe Attorney Johnson handed out the packet of revised hearing procedures for you. So what the plan is we'll talk about this real quick today, and then we're going to adopt them at your hearing in a month. So we could talk about them today a little bit, what's changing, why they're changing, in between now and the hearing next month. Y'all give us feedback on what you think works, what doesn't work, and we can revise this to how it needs to be.
Okay.
So we'll just have Mr. Johnson give just a little bit of background why we're doing this.
Okay. Mr. Johnson?
Well, you should find a packet at your seat, or if I handed it to you directly. This is an effort to streamline the rules of procedure for the Board of Zoning Appeals, the Planning Commission, and the Board of Commissioners for their zoning hearings. So it's a big task to take 3 different rules of procedures for 3 different boards and the Planning Commission to streamline them into one. And so if you look at this, page 7, I believe, is where the substance of the sections begin, but it even makes reference to BZA, Planning Commission, and the Board of Commissioners. So the goal of having a streamlined rules of procedure is have all 3 adopted. Of course, neither of those have adopted yet, including this board. As of right now, there's a lot of procedure that is the same, but it's expressed differently. It might be located in a different section depending on the body or the board. And so this was an effort to streamline all of those into one document, one rules of procedure that would be standard for all the zoning hearings for the county. So that's the ultimate goal. So this would not just apply to BZA, but if BZA were to consider these as presented and adopt them, then they would apply to them without the Planning Commission having adopted and/or the Board of Commissioners. This has not gotten to that level yet, but we discussed this at our training session. We briefly discussed it at work session on Monday. So this is an effort to put this before this board as an initial step to start the review and amending process. We had talked about there is a preference from this membership to change the start times, at a minimum, change the start time from this public hearing from 1 o'clock to 1:30. That alone would require amending the rules. And so if we're going to be doing that, we should, at a minimum, put forth a consideration for amending the rules in toto as presented to you in this document. Most of it is just changing placement of things, streamlining sections and headings. There very little substance. There is some additional language governing appeals to this Board of Zoning Appeals. For example, weed appeals or appeals of an administrative decision from community development. That is spelled out in this as well. As you read through this, there will be some sections that would not apply to BZA. For example, comprehensive plan and future land use map amendments and things like that. But in an effort to streamline this among all 3 boards, that there would be language in here that wouldn't apply to this board, but it wouldn't affect the procedure and the hearing from here. So it's a lot of information. If you would take our current rules and place them up against these, a lot of it will be the same, just placed in a different place, a different section, a different heading. And so that's what I would encourage each of you to do over the next month. The rules themselves require that you have to wait at least a month before introduction, review, discussion, which is to an extent what we are initiating today, before action can be taken, right? So at a minimum, we would have to wait a month anyhow.
Yeah.
But we do know there is a desire among this board, at a minimum, to change the start time. So we know that's something that will be amended, even if there is not a desire at this time to move forward with a complete overhaul of the rules to accept these. The same will also be presented to the Planning Commission, and there will be an effort to place before the Board of Commissioners for their consideration as well to change and amend their zoning rules of procedure. So that is the ultimate goal. This process started years and years ago. Pandemic got in the way, and so here we are today. And hopefully this will be considered by this board. And we don't have to adopt it next month. If there are questions, concerns, those are certainly going to be addressed. But we do know, based upon the preference of this board, that there is a desire to change the start time for this BZA commencing in January.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you very much. What I might do is just make sure to encourage all my fellow board members to read through it. If you do have questions, ask those of Mr. Johnson or Mr. Peterson in the meantime so that we can be in a position to vote at our November hearing. Mr. Johnson, one quick question. Were there any material changes to any of the procedures then as it might apply to the BZA that you can think of?
I don't believe there are substantive changes to something we're already doing, whether in writing or in practice, right? So we might be, this board might be engaging, I'm trying to think of an example of something we do in our hearings, but it might not be necessarily written down. And so this is an effort to memorialize those into the rules of procedure. But what I can do is take this and go back, and if I can find some examples to provide those back to you through an email, we can communicate in that vein as we move through the next month.
That sounds great.
In reviewing these, but most of it is more just the placement of where things are, even if the preface is different. And but again, it's primarily the same substance, just in a different, more streamlined format.
Got it.
If I could say
one more. Okay, I'm sorry.
No.
Ms. Russell, go ahead.
If we have questions, can we copy each other so we know the question's been?
Mike.
If we all would just do the courtesy to each other, if you have a question, we copy each other so we're not asking repeat questions, and those questions might prompt others.
Yeah.
But I would find that helpful.
I think, yep, good point.
Exactly.
All right. One last question for you. You brought up the start times. Is that something we can still move on today, or do we need to wait then until we approve this to?
So per the rules, we need to wait a month. We're entertaining formally changing the start time, so I would recommend we'd wait a month before we formally adopt that.
Got it.
And I know that goes with our
Meeting.
resolution. There's a resolution that goes to the calendar for 2022, which would need to reflect the start times, and I think we're on a timetable for that for December. So that would be in keeping, we would be good with that, to meet that deadline for publication and adoption resolution for the 2022 calendar.
All right, great. So we've made the point, though, that we are considering a new start time. We'll revisit that at the hearing next
So
month.
is the desire of this board to start these hearings at 1:30?
Starting in January of
Yes.
2022. We'll take that vote next month, and then likewise with the dates and times of the hearings themselves, right? We're going to hold off on that until next month as well. Okay, thank you very, very much for that.
And I believe that would address two of the other business items, since we went ahead and talked about the dates and times, unless the clerk has any additional information as to the calendar.
Anything else from y'all? Okay. Thank you. We do have a little bit more housekeeping, though, and that's to approve the minutes from our last BZA hearing and our last work session. Has everybody had a chance to look those over at this point? Okay. Is there a motion to approve? Okay.
Motion to approve those sets of minutes.
Thank you. We got a motion to approve from Mrs. Russell.
Second.
Okay, Mr. O'Malley is seconded. Any further discussion on that? All right, we'll call for a vote. And the motion to approve is passed on a 5-0 vote, and that will conclude our business. Is there any other business that we do need to discuss today? Hearing none, and if there are no objections, I'll declare the meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Go Braves.